Okay, so a lot of people recently went over to the movie theaters and seen the latest release of an anime film that has exploded in the box office, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, aka the first installment into the brand new Jujutsu Kaisen movie franchise. And with it, a lot of people left the theaters having a blast, but also with a lot of questions. And one of the main ones being, especially for those that are hip to what's going on in the manga right now after chapters 178 and beyond of Jujutsu Kaisen, is if we're seeing Yuta in current day manga and he still has Rika, how is that possible? How is that going on? What the heck happened? Because at the end of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the movie, I'm going to give you a massive spoiler alert right now, so you've been warned. 3, 2, 1. Essentially, Rika is freed from the curse that ultimately was put upon her. However, from the time Yuta returned into the Jujutsu Kaisen manga a year later, is running around with Rika. And again, that had me bugging the hell out. Like, yo, how is that possible? What happened? I read Jujutsu Kaisen 0 back in the day. I just watched the film and I'm still like, Well, finally, after the latest chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, we got the answers that we were looking for. For the most part, what happened, why Yuta has Rika to begin with, but also after Jujutsu Kaisen 0, there was something else that stood out to me as well. I honestly feel like I know a couple of major things that is about to happen in terms of how Jujutsu Kaisen ends, based on a lot of the dynamics between Jujutsu Kaisen 0, Jujutsu Kaisen, their serializations, and in general the mirroring between the two casts and the story and where things are going. I don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's get to these things. I got some answers for you if you have questions regarding the world of Jujutsu Kaisen.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
Okay, people, so if you've been reading the Jujutsu Kaisen manga lately as of the latest chapter 178, then you've probably been going a little bit cray-cray, especially considering it's just a Yuta bonanza, a Jujutsu Kaisen 0 greatness marathon, because not only do we have this chapter, these last few chapters at that, of Yuta putting his foot into the ashes of any sorcerer that comes around, but also we have the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 movie that just dropped in theaters. So yeah, Yuta right now is on everyone's mind, but also in general the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 cast, the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 story, and in general Yuta as a character, his connection to Rika, and everything that's transpired from the time the story started, with Yuta being tied up and Gojo badgering him, a la similar to, the revamped version of him and Yuji, to where we're at right now, him fighting and throwing down in a 3-way battle royale versus Fujiwara and that chick in the Cullin games. For starters, let's answer one of the biggest questions that I've had since the reemergence of Yuta into the full-on Jujutsu Kaisen serialized manga, the latest one, the new one, was, yo, what's going on? How does he have Rika? Because again, if you read all the way back when the manga was released, or just in general prior to this, the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 prequel story, you would know that Rika was essentially freed from the curse, and ultimately, Yuta was supposed to be, on his own. Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the movie, is almost like a shonen anime condensed down to a film. As I said in my review, go check it out if you'd like. It was kind of like the beginning of Naruto to the end of the Orochimaru saga of original Naruto, the invasion and whatnot. Like, that's kind of, for the most part, what it covered. In a way, if you add all the context and details of like what a weekly, manga would do, it would have been a full-on serialized thing. In the latest chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 178, one of the big reveals, again, that we've been dying for, was dropped in terms of Yuta having Rika. And I'll keep it real, to be honest with you, it did feel a little bit disappointing in terms of, like, I thought that was going to be something a lot more grandiose. I thought that they were going to really push it forward. I thought it was going to be a massive reveal, and it almost felt subtle. Kind of reminded me of the writing styles of Yoshihiro Togashi, like the big reveal in Hunter x Hunter towards the end of a goal that was accomplished in a very awkward way and unexpected. That's kind of how it was in terms of the big reveal of how Yuta still has Rika. I thought we were going to get a massive flashback. I thought we were going to find out, like, oh, Rika came back after the film or something like that, but it was kind of, for the most part, just a very basic explanation that was given to us of how Rika returned. Because in chapter 178, it was said, and I quote, "Rika is Okotsu's cursed technique and can store cursed energy for him. Rika remained with him after Rika Orimoto passed away. While connected to Rika through his ring, the following is possible. cursed technique use, Rika's complete manifestation, cursed energy supply from Rika. He can maintain a sustained connection for 5 minutes. Essentially, it seems as though that promised ring that was left behind in the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 film has essentially the husk of Rika. Think the cursed form essentially is like stored in there, but not Rika's soul. The soul, the spirit, the person itself is gone now. Which I guess it kind of feels a little bit like, wait, so the husk stood connected to that ring and Yuta can only use it for like 5 minutes at a time. Feels a little weird, especially the time limit. Like, why only 5 minutes? Does it get a little too weary to stay out? Like, what's going on? But essentially, yeah, it's Yuta's ring that has that husk of Rika in it. That is not Rika, the little girl, which is kind of weird because essentially it like differentiates the two. And shouldn't the curse disappear once Rika is brought back to normal? But yeah, people, that was a mystery that we've been dying to hear, finally revealed, and it happened. And it was just kind of like done from a narrator's perspective, very basic. And I was like, I thought it would have been something like a flashback. We would have saw a time that, you know, Yuta was in a jam, you know, again, because there's still so much mystery in between Jujutsu Kaisen 0, him going overseas and returning to the story in the serialized version in Jujutsu Kaisen. There's a lot of mystery about Yuta, how he got from being almost like a Deku to a Yusuke Urameshi, like how that happened. That brings me to my next point that I was referring to earlier, kind of foreshadowing, I don't know, doing my mangaka type of stuff, my mangaka vibes, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm going to give you guys an example of some of the type of practices of how things work in shonen business, so you get an idea of how I've come to this conclusion. If you follow any of my Naruto, Boruto related things, one of the production reasons behind Boruto was initially it was pitched as supposed to be a revamp version of Naruto. It was supposed to initially be Naruto just with a massive twist or something. It turned into a spin-off and it kept on going, but that was the initial idea behind it. And it almost seems like to a certain degree Jujutsu Kaisen is somewhat the same type of vibe, where it basically took like the initial idea as a blueprint of like, okay, so Jujutsu Kaisen 0, as short-lived as it was, essentially it had all the major beats, and you've seen a lot of those major beats in Jujutsu Kaisen that you see in the movie. Like if you watch Jujutsu Kaisen 0 or you read the original version of it in the manga, then you will know that, oh, so it starts off exactly with like Yuji, with Yuta being tied up and whatnot, and there's a lot of big beats down to even the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the big massive curse festival that Suguru Geto is trying to accomplish and all that jazz. Very similar to what's going on in the manga right now with the big, massive Cullin games, which, in case you don't know, again, there's a lot of similarities between Jujutsu Kaisen 0 and Jujutsu Kaisen in terms of down to Yuta having Rika, Sukuna is inside of Yuji. Again, it's, you know, differentiating like, hey, one was a little girl that was cursed and in love, and the other one is an ancient demon that is a psychopath that, you know what I'm saying, I wouldn't trust with anything. I wouldn't trust him to end my life because he might prolong it just to get a little laugh. But I say all that to say this, that if Jujutsu Kaisen 0 essentially is almost a blueprint for Jujutsu Kaisen, then you could throw the argument that there might be some similar beats that were used in Jujutsu Kaisen 0 that will be used in Jujutsu Kaisen. And it got me thinking that the way Yuji exercises or gets rid of Sukuna is going to be somewhat in the realm, but nowhere close to something like what happens with Yuta and Rika, because ultimately linked together the whole thing of that's been foreshadowed for a very long time of Sukuna having a recognition to Megumi. What if it's that, boom, I'm about to drop bombshells on you right now, I'm excited to even tell you this. Megumi's ancestor that possibly looked identical to Megumi maybe might have been the one that cursed Sukuna back in the day to begin with, similar to the big plot twist of how it was actually Yuta that cursed Rika, not the other way around. And if essentially Rika was the keys to Yuta's freedom, essentially, you know, having that recognition and understanding, then likewise it could be similar in the same vein in terms of Megumi being the one that cursed Sukuna, being the one to save Yuji, essentially. Instead of killing Yuji, he's going to save him by exercising Sukuna because he was the one that brought him to fruition to begin with cursing him. Obviously, they're pretty different, but it's still similar principles. And again, if one is a blueprint for another, you can assume that similar concepts might be borrowed. And I guess to add in another extra scene that, again, using the blueprint, we probably might see one more scene of Gojo and Suguru Geto on the floor, except obviously we know that that's Brain-kun, but maybe Brain-kun might have the ability of some residual memories or some cursed energy that was left behind by Suguru Geto, or maybe we might get more of an expansion expansion on those words, the last words between Suguru Geto and Gojo that was said in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and that'll connect there. But I definitely foresee one more scene between Gojo and, you know, his former best friend, and possibly Gojo might be the one to give the final blow. Maybe he gets saved at the last second and he delivers the final blow, killing Kenjaku, ending the Cullin games, mirroring Jujutsu Kaisen 0 to a certain degree, and ultimately wrapping Jujutsu Kaisen up with Sukuna being executed thanks to Megumi, saving Yuji from dying, mirroring the whole Rika Yuta situation in a way, ultimately giving you guys my whole idea of how Jujutsu Kaisen ends. Massively curious what you guys think, though. For starters, what do you think about my massive grand idea of how Jujutsu Kaisen ends and its connection to the blueprint that Jujutsu Kaisen 0 leaves forward? Also, what do you think about essentially the whole reveal of Rika being essentially just connected to the ring, and it's not the real Rika, it's just that husk version? Your overall thoughts and expectations for the future of Jujutsu Kaisen. We're in store for a lot of greatness. Yuta kicking major ass, Fujiwara, everybody in the Cullin games. This is intense, and yeah, the finale is going to be insane. That's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life. Bye. Have an awesome day. Peace in, and yo, the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen is going to be wild one way or another. I trust Gege Akutami's pen. Have an awesome one.
You are what I know, so just go.